How absurd can things get in our legal system when former drug kingpin and fugitive Tony Mokbel is awarded $1 million in compensation after being bashed and stabbed in prison? Now, Mokbel sued the state of Victoria over what has been called a frenzied attack on him by two other jail inmates. He was in maximum security at a prison in Lara and had to be rushed to hospital. Remember that, rushed to hospital, it's relevant, with stab wounds, a fractured skull and a brain hemorrhage and some teeth knocked out. Mokbel also claims he suffered a traumatic brain injury in that attack. Serious injuries, and prisoners should be safe in jail, although, of course, his one-time rival in the deadly Melbourne underworld wars, Carl Williams, died in jail after being bashed to death with a part from an exercise bike way back in 2010. Look, it's not just the $1 million awarded, though that will anger a lot of people. News of Mokbel's payout, and he won't get much of it, but no, that is not the point. His treatment in jail and the hospital care offered immediately with an ambulance was revealed on the very same week that these things happened in Victoria. A woman died in central Victoria last Wednesday after waiting 5 hours for paramedics to turn up after she collapsed after suffering a suspected overdose of prescription medicine. Now, the reason for the delay was a standoff between police and Ambulance Victoria over whether the dead woman had been violent toward emergency service workers in the past. A tragic bureaucratic bungle, but it gets worse. Now, Mokbel, as I said, got rushed to hospital after being bashed, probably got great treatment. A week ago, it was revealed that a Blackburn man was left for dead after he fell over when paramedics took 5 hours again to get to him. Why 5 hours? Well, the ambulance staff were ramped up at Box Hill Hospital, and the hospital, according to the Herald Sun, refused to release the crews back onto the road. By the time they got to the patient, sadly, he was dead on the floor of his own house. Now, this all comes as a parliamentary inquiry into the ambulance service resumed sitting today. Those are just two incidents, but there are dozens and dozens of others, and it serves, I believe, as a stark warning of the real costs of a state that is broke, the real-life consequences of mismanagement of taxpayers' money, a state government that's run out of ideas other than levying new taxes and charges on people and an emergency service worker shortage right across, police, ambulance drivers, nurses, and a lack of funding for hospitals. And we pay out $1 million compensation to a notorious criminal figure in Tony Mokbel, who is at the centre of a massive illegal drug empire, who fled the country on a tip-off, costing the state millions of dollars chasing him down, only to now see him out of jail on bail, likely to sue the state for another $1 million over the Lawyer X scandal. Meanwhile, an old fella falls over at home, calls 000 and dies on his kitchen floor because no one came to help him for 5 hours. What a disgraceful mess and a bitter joke.